As you said, the
Yeah.
idea is you come in, you give this proposal to the leader, and a lot of leaders are going to say, okay, they like power, they want a cushy life, they want lots of money, they're not too bothered about selling their people out. Okay, that works with some. If they say, sorry, I'm not prepared to do that, then they send in these people that we said were called jackals to kind of strong arm, probably still with words mainly, just a kind of sinister smile, whatever it is, there's going to be problems basically. And of course, the deal that they're proposing is that they get a loan from the World Bank or the IMF, and to pay this back, they have to allow all these American companies to come in.
Yes.
And they get certain contracts for
yes, the exploitation of resources, like they did, oil
Yeah.
extraction in Ecuador with all the American
and
oil companies. Infrastructure.
contracts.
Well, but infrastructure, not hospitals or schools. Unfortunately, it's all about big projects
Yes.
that only wealthy people who have a car, for instance,
Yeah.
can benefit from.
Yeah.
So even when it's about infrastructure, because one would think, infrastructure, maybe we are trying to improve actually that country, but in a lot of
Yeah.
cases, that money is wasted in projects that do not benefit the vast
Yeah,
majority
you're
of
right.
people.
So if the jackals don't work, and he gives the example of Saddam Hussein. Now, I'm not sure if it's so simple with Iraq. I mean, I'm sure we could go into all kinds of other information we found about why Iraq was invaded, which it's a long story. But he said the third stage is military. So they have a war.
Yes,
they invade.
Yes, they invade, or that's even
Occupy.
after the jackals, because the jackals, I think, they are like the hitmen. Basically, there are those who will do really the assassination, and then if they fail, then there's gonna be the invasion,
Military.
like you say. In some cases, they didn't fail, and they managed to do a regime change with some of these presidents democratically elected in Latin America. But recently with Muammar Gaddafi, regime change.
Another friend of the West.
Yeah.
Originally a friend of the West.
Yeah.
Osama bin Laden was a CIA asset.
Absolutely. What they're trying to do in Syria, they try to avoid really invading and going to war, because then they have this perception problem. People are starting maybe to wake up, and they don't like war that much. Look at what they have done here in the UK for the first time in 300 years, maybe.
Yeah, they've said
just
no.
The politicians say no to going to war. Unbelievable. So this may be really a sign of that some things are changing, but now I completely lost what I was saying.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
But
Don't worry.
anyway, just carry on.
Well, we were earlier talking about the rich and the poor. We were talking about this relationship, and John
Saddam and Saddam actually.
Saddam,
and all the recent examples. I don't really know about Saddam that much, besides knowing that he was a good friend and allied during the 80s of US and UK and obviously all the Western powers. But what I read, although I don't have much information about it, is that he wanted to start, for the Second War, the one that was started in 2003, that he wanted to start to trade petroleum in euros, and start to disengage from the dollar, the petrodollar. And a similar fate, I think, or a similar actually plan was the one of Muammar Gaddafi. He wanted to create a gold standard for in Pan-Africa trade and try to rely less on the dollar. And it seems that whoever touches the dollar dies, especially the status as petrodollar used for, and also as the currency that is used for all the international trade. Its status after Bretton Woods of the international reserve currency, as they call it. So whoever threatens this must be prepared to receive a visit by one of the 900 military bases.
It's incredible, isn't it?
The US.
900, something like that.
Worldwide.
Another book I've read recently, I'm just finishing off, is The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein.
Yes.
Now, of course, Naomi Klein is someone who has mainstream cred. You know, obviously she gets attacked by certain people, but she wrote No Logo, which I haven't read, and The Shock Doctrine.
I watched the documentary, The Shock Doctrine, because they made a documentary.
Yeah, I think actually she disassociated herself from the documentary, but I'm not. It does cover similar ground. I mean,
Yes.
the book is very long, very detailed, but I mean, it's a harrowing. You know, if it's true, and again, it's well sourced. It's just a harrowing story of how they've taken Friedmanism, Milton Friedman, the idea of free trade, and just decimated these countries in Latin America. They call it the Southern Cone, which is Brazil.
Southern Cone is
Brazil,
Argentina, Chile. Mostly, I would say the Southern Cone.
Uruguay,
is,
Brazil.
Well, it depends on how north you go to
Right,
define
right,
the
right.
Southern Cone.
Right, okay.
But it's mostly, I would say, it's Argentina and Chile.
Okay.
But then, you know, if you go north, a bit north of Buenos Aires, you get, you know, to Paraguay, Uruguay, and then to Brazil, and even Bolivia and Peru.
Bolivia. I mean, Bolivia is featured in this book, and it's just a harrowing tale of how all these leaders who were tried to nationalise and tried to actually break the gap between rich and poor were just either discredited or killed, basically. And I mean, just to give you one quick example, the Chicago Boys, which is the Chicago
School of Economics, where Milton Friedman came from.
Milton Friedman came from there, and they took some of Chile's brightest intellectuals and obviously took them to Chicago. I don't know whether they gave them a holiday or whatever, and schooled them in this. And you know, it's quite hard reading it to see how all these people could have just been so easily coerced into it. But basically, the idea was privatization, deregulation, and cuts to social spending. And reading it, I couldn't quite work out how people thought this was ever a good idea. But basically, it's just decimated the countries, and it's just made the rich rich. You know, it's made a few companies rich. And this is a story of what we've just been talking about for the last 15, 20 minutes, you know.
Yes.
Benefiting the rich.
It has happened in a lot of countries, in a way.